There are three specific variances that are requested in relation to this project. First is a 14.9-foot front yard setback variance to permit construction of an attached garage which extends into the Chesterfield front yard with a 25.1-foot setback. Second is a 7-foot front yard setback variance for the Glen Ridge frontage to bring the front setback nonconformity into compliance. And then finally, a 5.3-foot side yard setback variance to permit the garage addition to match the current nonconforming setback of the home from the east property line. You hear references here to Chesterfield and Glenwood as this property sits on a corner, and we're dealing with a couple different setbacks. Who is here on that matter? Very good, sir.
I got a helper.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll swear you both in. You raise your right hand for me. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter before the board. Okay, thank you. If we can get your name, sir.
John Francis.
All righty. And helper, your name.
Mia Francis?
Yeah. All right, very good. In your own words, and the nature of the appeal and the hardship.
We moved into this neighborhood about 17 years ago. I actually grew up in Bass Lake community, a little bit north of here. Moved out of there when I bought my own house. It was in another lake community. We came to Akron and we moved into Turkey Foot Heights, which is another lake community. I love being near the lake and the water. The problem comes in that I also have a hobby that I like to collect cars, which was fine for a while. I work in my garage, keep things clean. Me and my wife have to park our cars outside, which isn't a major deal, but I'd rather have everything inside. So, you know, I think we could stay here for the rest of our lives on Turkey Foot Heights here in Green. We like it. Our daughter likes the neighborhood. She likes the lake. So about a year and a half ago, we looked at it, putting up a garage. The property I want to do it on is kind of on a hill, which I kind of came to terms that if I want to do this here, it's going to take a little bit of work in removing part of the hill and also removing the trees. You know, I want to be clear that, you know, I'm not a mechanic. I don't work. This is something I do for fun. I manage a business for my full-time work. My daughter, this is Hot Rod Magazine. This car actually set records in 1982. I collect them, and I'd like to think one day it'll be my retirement. My two-car garage that I have right now is completely full. I have the one car. I have another car, which is a 1969 race car. It doesn't race anymore. I don't drive it in the neighborhood. I store them. I restore them. I don't do paint work. I don't do anything. I nut and bolt things together. At some point, I know my father, who restores antique motorcycles, will be passing them on to me. There's three 1935 to 1940 Harley Davidsons, and I'm out of space. I got nowhere to put it. I love where I'm at. I'm willing to make the investment to put the stuff there. I just need to be able to get it in. All my immediate neighbors have no issues. I know I do have one neighbor who's rented the house for 5 years that is totally against me, but that's why we're here tonight. I believe I made a bunch of other statements, which you have, just as far as this is what I'm proposing. And it's long, it's deep. I did that on purpose so that it can go inside the hill and it doesn't look like a big shop or garage. It's going to look like part of the hill. It's Paint and Paint Builders out of Chardon, Ohio have designed this. I had another architect involved. We're trying to do this as beautiful as possible. I want it, you know, I have a very nice home and I want it to blend. If I can't pass a variance on this, this is the other design which is unsightly. It's only 20 foot deep, which stays inside the zoning guidelines, and it's only 36 wide, which will also stay inside the zoning guidelines. But it's unsightly. All my immediate neighbors that look at it agree with me. They're like, we don't want to look at that. So I need to get the variance passed so I can do something that looks conforming. So that's my case. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I will note, as you touched upon, you know, we did receive, I'm hopeful to catch all of them here. We did receive some communications. Those that they have signed or provided their name, we certainly want to address those. Those that have not, I don't think I've got any in this instance. We generally don't address them, but we did receive several, and I think it indicated an individual that may be opposed to it. I do have correspondence here from Patricia Fugate. I'll go ahead and present that to the record, that she indicates that the east property owner at 158 West Glen Ridge, adjacent to the appellant, Mr. Francis, on the west. My property is most adversely affected by this variance request, and I strongly oppose the approval of the request. Dealing with some history, in 1986, the home at 166 West Glen Ridge was approved illegally and granted permission to be constructed. It doesn't control us here. Ever since the building was constructed, there's been drainage issues with regard to West Glen Ridge, and of course we're all sensitive to that as we start, and again, as you mentioned in your project, moving dirt around, so I'm going to ask you to address that. This new structure request should abide by the 10-foot side and rear setbacks set forth. Concerned about new drainage issues, property elevation, topographies on drastic incline compared to the appellant's property. Submitted some information with regard to how the property looks to his, and you've submitted those pictures as well. We're questioning as to how you're planning drainage, downspouts, gutters, where will they be piped and where will they be drained. The size and appearance of the structure is 40 by 38. Not conforming and out of character. However, we're not looking at a variance request with regard to the size, so I'm going to assume that you are within size as far as your square footage, and you're going to require there. It's not out of proportion to the neighborhood, or it is out of proportion to the neighborhood, and it would cause a decline to property values. And of course, that's a concern and something that we look to try to prepare. On his request, Mr. Francis states the need for a second attached garage to be used to work for his own personal cars. Was approached at the states on social media. He runs Theo's Speed Shop, and we do have some information provided with regard to a Theo Speed Shop. I'd ask you to address that in all seriousness.
All seriousness, my moaning.
At the right time, please.
Okay.
Which business is residential and development is illegal. All right, 40 by 38 addition is not logical for some who just wants to work on personal cars. He already has a full-size 2-car garage. He should be required to resubmit plans that conform with the zoning laws. And again, Ms. Fugate strongly disagrees. We also received from Rick Flora. My name is Rick Flora. My wife, Chris, and I lived at 3736 Chesterfield Drive. We are right across the street from a new addition proposed by John and Lindsay Francis. We have no objections to their proposed addition and think it would add value to their property. With regard to correspondence received here from Kelly Heimbaugh, I'm under the understanding the city is giving John Francis difficulty about time building his garage. I'm not aware of that, but we're going to do our best to try and do that. I'm the owner of the property across the street from 3726 Chesterfield. I'm fine with whatever John wants to do. It's his property, grant him whatever he wants. Well, that may be a bit much. With regard to this matter, Carmen Torrio, I'm writing to confirm my approval of Mr. Francis' garage variance. The zoning ordinance that prohibits garages from extending beyond the front building line of the home should be meant for new construction only. I know it applies to new construction to an existing home, but it's akin to putting modern safety bumpers on an old caddy. Many of the homes in this neighborhood are between 55 and 20 years old and do not conform. That was some of the difficulty we had, I think, in getting an idea as to what your request for variance would be. My home is directly across from John's Drive on West Glen Ridge. My garage is a good 20 feet past my front building line. John's will be about 3 paces or 10 feet in front of his. To make John comply would make his home an architectural I'll just say an architectural problem, and would do nothing positive to protect any of his neighbors or property values. So again, that's across the street. From Teresa Harold, regarding John Francis' zoning building request, my concerns with the granting permission of his garage would be if we found it to be a business after the fact, then we were stuck with this building. What course of action would be taken? We believe it is some sort of a racing business, and there's been some issue with regard to that. There's been some issues raised to our attention with regard to noise. I understand what you've talked about with regard to the type of hobby that is, and I do appreciate that hobby, engaging in it myself. Noise is an issue. So we've got issues with concerning drainage. We've got issue, and you've talked about moving, and hopefully that's kind of worked itself into the project of what your anticipation is with regard to drainage and those issues. So based on what you've heard here, just some of your...
I have drainage issues myself. The way the hill comes down, it runs through the side of my house. I actually have a French door in the bottom, and it washes all the dirt down there, and it goes into Patty's yard as well. So I know what she's talking about. And part of our idea is when we build the garage into the back of the wall, that's going to be all drain tile, as well as coming down to that where the existing house is, the gutters themselves. And I wish my builder was here. He's in Las Vegas in a convention. Barb spoke with him well. Pain & Pain is very reputable. They've staked this out. I can't speak intelligently on it, but I can tell you it's been intelligently thought out.
Meaning that with your builder, and again, we're aware of that, they've addressed that?
Yes. And that was,
Easy
like I
issue.
said, that was a major concern because it's a problem now. Our hopes would be to correct the problem.
Okay, very good.
As far as Theo's Speed Shop, my middle name's Theodore. When I was a little kid, about 6 years old, I got pictures of me with the hat on that says Theo's Speed Shop. I'm a manager for Minutemen Staffing. I manage about 7 offices. There's about 1,200 employees under me that I'm directly responsible for. I don't have time to run a business. This is what I do. I enjoy working on cars in my free time. Will a buddy bring a car over and say, hey, can you help me with this? Yeah, I've done that, but I don't charge money. I enjoy what I do. I've had the little car for about 4 years. The Alter I've had for about 2 years, and I'm not planning on selling them. I want space so I can keep them. Will I build another car someday? Possibly. When I do it, though, I don't do the major work myself. It's farmed out. I nut and bolt. I'm a nut and bolt guy. So there's definitely no business of any type. You'll never see an LLC or any kind of information regarding Theo Speed Shop other than me, 6 years old with my hat on.
Ms. Holden, your thoughts on the project there, too?
Since I came to green zoning in 2003, I've received summers full of phone calls about noise. I do have some history with quarter-mile track vehicles, so I can tell you that some of the calls were that you're pulling whole shots in the street, doing
Years ago.
burnouts in the street. I had consulted, and this is not these past 2 summers at least, but during those years I tried to involve the sheriff's office to assist, and Turkey Foot Heights is a very difficult place for them to patrol. It's not 619, it's not even Newcomb Drive, where, occasionally they can run through that neighborhood. I know you'd been contacted. That is the fear. I've heard from other neighbors who are also concerned with noise issues. And because we have not been able to enforce the city's noise codes.
You also had complaints regarding the trash around my place, and you rode by personally when you were getting these, and you said this is untrue. 95% of these complaints are people that don't live near me, that have a personal vendetta against me. I'm a responsible person. I wouldn't use the road as a quarter-mile track in front of my house.
Not questioning your integrity at
No,
all.
I understand, but those aren't just complaints, and you validated
I
that.
did witness burnouts on chip and seal asphalt roads. I believe the sheriff's office did too. At that time, though, it's difficult, to prove or disprove. It's difficult for you to disprove as well. I bring it up today because I've heard the same kinds of concerns by other neighbors who fear retribution, fear any kind of wrath, were they to come forward, and I can't share that information, those names. Some of them I don't even know, but I do know that when we bring this kind of an activity into a neighborhood, that's when zoning gets involved. I understand, even just with under your home, I believe your existing garage is under your
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Just, being a homeowner, a 2-car garage sometimes isn't enough for storage, so I understand maybe the need for more storage. And when we discussed home occupation, I told you that's my fear, is that we're moving into home occupation. Difficult for us to enforce a code when the code is not as clear as it could be. It says that you cannot impact the exterior of the home. No outside storage, no increased traffic. It doesn't address noise. That's difficult.
I've been good for 2 years, all right, no complaints.
When I've discussed home occupations with other people, especially with automotives, and it's common to do automotive work in a garage, you're allowed to do in an attached garage, automotive work, and the common statement, and I believe it's the same statement that you said, I will be working on my own cars. I'll be working on my personal vehicles. My history with that is, when people buy cars to fix up and sell, they do own them. So sometimes we get into semantics. I just want to be very clear that I don't want to spend the rest of my career ringing your phone,
It's been
knocking
2
on
years,
your
right?
door.
And you, I'm
Okay,
sure.
thank you, Ms. Holden, and thank you, Mr. Francis. Are there questions from the board?
I'd like to
Mr.
ask a question. The new garage that you presented to us, the two-car garage with the work shower, what exactly is going in there?
My current daily drivers, my wife's never had a garage, so my current garage will house both mine and my wife's car, our lawnmower, which sits on the side of my house now. The new garage is gonna house the pocket rocket, then my fuel altered, which these cars don't run in the neighborhood. I mean, they're strictly go to a track if I play with them. And I also have a 1964 station wagon Impala and a car trailer. I want to keep all that stuff inside this garage. That is my hope, as well as possible motorcycles that could be coming my way.
So still being under oath, you're telling us that anything that's ever come to that garage, you've not had monetary gain on it?
No, this
And
is what I do.
Have you done actual burnouts on the street testing that race car of yours?
Neither of these never. About 7 years ago, I had a car where I admit I did burnouts on the street. I was a little bit younger then, not so smart. I did it.
You gotta understand our position. Turkey Foot Heights is it was the exclusive neighborhood years ago is when it went in. Homes are very close. Probably not populated with as many young children as it was one day, but speed limit in residential areas is 25 miles an hour.
I'm not sure I ever broke a speed limit.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm going off of what past history I've got in front of me related to me.
It's
So
been years,
I am asking
I'm
you
sure.
to be honest with us and under oath that this garage is for personal use only, besides storing a couple cars that you're keeping.
I swear to you under oath that
So when you work on the cars down below that are race cars, being you have a full-time job and you probably have to work on them after hours.
Really not even, I get home 6, 7 o'clock at night, so I'm usually wore out. It's usually a weekend thing. I've got 4 years into that car, the red one. The other one I've got 2 years into. I started working on it immediately when I got it.
Which I understand after 8 in the evening, starting a car up that has a decent-sized motor is going to.
The one is powered by a jet engine, would never run in the neighborhood. It would be completely unsafe. It's been done for 2 years. I've never started in the neighborhood. The other one runs on nitromethane. It would never be started in the neighborhood. When that car started, there's people around with fire extinguishers, and it's done in a controlled environment. Nitromethane's not something you would start up in a residential neighborhood. I haven't so far, and I never would. And I say that under oath.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Additional questions from the board at this juncture?
I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Reed.
Okay, based on the lot size, if the variance is not granted, what would prevent him, if anything, from going ahead and just stacking them and doing 4 garages right in a row? Is there anything legally the city could do to stop that from happening, as long as he gets the building permits?
I believe we did identify other variances. He would still need a variance to the rear.
No. I would have to, it could only be 20 foot long, but in the rear, I could build it 10 foot from the property line and still have 20 foot deep.
I believe we identified that you only have a 5 foot, 4.7 foot side yard setback.
Correct.
So he could not continue that line that I'm calling the rear. I'm calling it the rear of the house. He could not continue that line. If he built onto the home, the garage, with a 10-foot minimum, 10-foot setback, so he would have to bump it in from the existing wall of the home. If he did that, 10 foot on the side, yes, he could do that. He would need 10 foot behind, I'm going to call it behind the garage he's showing us, and 10 feet from the other side setback. Yes, he could still build a garage. Couldn't build this garage, but yes, he could still add on.
It would be wide, like
It's
you mentioned.
possible.
Because if the concern is, burnouts in the road or noise from large block engines, I mean, by us not granting the variance, that really doesn't address that issue at all. if he's able to just find another way to put more automobiles into a building, really, we're talking at this point aesthetics as far as whether we want it two and then very deep, or if we want to make it wider, is the way I'm looking at the issue. So I mean, the discussion about loud noises and things like that, I don't think really are going to get addressed by denying this variance, in my opinion. I don't see where they're really connected.
And it has been years since I've made noise in the neighborhood.
How about in the audience this evening? Anyone here care to address this directly? Yes, please, come on up, and we're going to ask you to step aside there. Francis. And we'll get you a chance to come back up then when you're done. Welcome.
Thank you.
We can get your name, please.
I am Patricia Fugate, and I own the property at 158 West Glenridge, just to the east of Mr. and Mrs. Francis.
158 West Glenridge, correct?
Correct.
All right, if you'd raise your right hand for me. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and the matter brought before the board.
I do.
Okay, your position, ma'am.
I am not here to stop John from building this building, but my concerns are, and we've had, and I'm not here to cause any dissension, we've had a nice neighborly, friendly relationship ever since, I've owned the property first and when they moved in. So my concern is, unfortunately, Turkeyfoot Heights is, doesn't conform to the laws and setbacks that are set forth. And my property is 4.7. You know, when it was built, his house, when it was built in 86, I believe, because mine was built before, they didn't get a variance. So his property line is 4.7 off of mine. My concern is he should abide by the 10-foot setback. He could resubmit a plan, and it's tough here because this is a big piece of paper here, but here's the frontage on Glenridge right there. And this is my property line there, and this building, like I said, his building is 4.7 off of my property line. So my property line goes all the way. I'm the most affected by this variance. And so again, the back of the building is going to be 4.7 off of my property line. I don't know how, you know, the use of how he wants to do it, but it could easily been designed that this can still be attached to the house, set it back, would have to be another, 6 feet, close to that, less than 6 feet, and then run it down. And it wouldn't have to be as drastic as he showed with 4-car garage opening here, which I'm not even sure if that would follow Turkeyfoot Heights Association. You'd have a 6-car garage in the neighborhood with overhead doors. I don't know if that, you know, if that's allowed or not, but my concern is my property value and just that abiding. We have rules, we have zoning setbacks. They should be. There's, you know, 2 wrongs doesn't make a right. It could, you know, it is what it is. The existing house, which John didn't have anything to do with that, but there's a way to resubmit a new plan that this could be done, I'm sure, very easily, and get it off of my property line and abide by the 7 feet.
Questions from the board based on that? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Fugate. We appreciate
Thank you.
that. Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Francis, absolutely.
Can I rebuttal?
Absolutely. Response to that.
If I couldn't go as deep, which I show in the second picture, I would need to go wider then. That part is all in a huge hill way behind her house. It wouldn't even really be visible from her house. I think Barb's familiar with the property. You know, I totally understand the drainage, that's an issue. But as far as the placement, it really is away from hers, and it's in a hill. As you can see the size of the hill, and we're going to leave most of the hill on the side of it there. There'll be 22 foot of that hill. to cover the building. So, like I said, I don't want it to stick out. I don't want it to look like I have a huge garage. I want it to look like part of my house. I don't want it to be known that I've got a bunch of collector vehicles in there. So that's the reason for wanting to go deep and to stay level with the back of my house, to make it notch in from the back of my house to get the room from the property line, to me would not make a whole lot of sense.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions based upon the, or certainly additional questions from the board, or would entertain any motions?
Excuse me, Mr. Inquirine?
Yes.
One thing I did want to clarify was, as we worked with Mr. Francis in preparing this for the variance, a couple of the variances that are on here, we added because we found an error that was, certainly, you didn't build this home, but the 33-foot front setback, especially on the Glenridge side, we added that. Since we're asking for a variance, so I just want to make sure that our addition doesn't affect your decision for him. We're trying to clean up the whole property for him by adding the 33, the home has 33-foot setbacks from each side. There was a mistake made in zoning when the permit for the home was issued. The code was applied incorrectly. You know me, if I find a mistake. So this hopefully would help him if, when in the future he wants to transfer this home, it will be totally in compliance. The 4.7 was not anything that Mr. Francis did. It's the home as he bought it. But when we found the mistake for the front setbacks, we added the other variances to clean up the entire issue for him, so.
Ms. Holden, I thank you for pointing that out, because we've
It
received.
looks worse than it is.
Right, we've received a good packet of information, and also really a two-page layout of how you arrived at the variances that, quite frankly, some that are requested here, as Ms. Holden had said, are really not directed at all to your project, but just the fact of really also what Ms. Fugate said, is that at the time it was built, it wasn't built properly, and it was happening, I'll say often, but it happened throughout that development and other developments. We try to catch it. So here, there's some requests to actually correct all of the variance problems that you have on the parcel and the construction on the parcel, even as it exists now. Quite frankly, if we're not encouraged with the garage setup, there are a couple variances that you could address that deal strictly just with correcting your house as it sits on the parcel. And we should also consider those separately if there's an issue with regard to the entire request.
We can approve them all together. I'm good with that.
We're all aware of that too, Mr. Francis. And Ms. Holden, I appreciate your time in putting all that together and laying it out. So again, back to the requests for variances as they are enumerated 1, 2, and 3. I would certainly entertain a motion as to one or all. Hearing no additional questions from the board, and having reserved the right to make a motion as chairman, I'll go ahead at this juncture and make a motion that we approve the variance requests as enumerated, 1, 2, and 3, which would permit the construction of the attached garage as proposed. There's been a motion made then to approve the variance 1, 2, and 3, each of them as requested. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Wilmer has seconded the motion to approve the variances as requested, 1, 2, and 3. So if you would call roll on the motion to approve as requested.
Mr. Inquirvati?
Yes.
Mr. Wilmer?
Yes.
Mr. Mercer?
Yes.
Mr. Spate,
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Okay, and then that passes 5-0. Okay. A little decorum, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, everybody. Barb, for all your help, and
Thank you.
I'll be quiet.
We'll prepare this and call you.
Sheriff Berry will be happy to hear that, or not to hear that, as it were. Okay, our matter this evening, BZA 15-43, David Variance, 1136 Linmar Drive here in the city of Greene, where appellant Mr. Variance at that address is proposing to construct a garage which does not comply with Greene Codified Ordinance Part 12 Planning and Zoning. The variances were two. First, to permit construction of a detached garage in the right side yard, and the second, to permit an additional 284 square feet of accessory use with regard to that structure. Who is here on that matter? Yes, sir. Welcome. May I bring you forward? If you raise your right hand for me when you're settled, I mean to rush you. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter now before the board?
I do.
Okay. Again, welcome, sir. If I could get your name, please.
David Ferenz.
All righty. And at 1136 Linmar Drive is a good address for you?
Correct.
All right, please. The nature of your appeal, just in your own words, what we have here. Let's you get those set, and make sure you keep a copy for yourself to lay out under our little X there, if you would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The handout is basically what you already have, just a different scale.
Appreciate it.
Today, I'm applying for a variance to put a garage or outbuilding next to my house. Me and my wife got married in the spring. We both lived in Greene beforehand. We sold our previous two houses. We looked around to find a house with enough room to blend two families together. This one worked out with enough property and everything to work with our needs. My previous house had a 6-bay garage on Alpine Boulevard, and she lived on April Drive where there was no room to expand or add a